Welcome to Rex Sikes Movie Beat, conversations with filmmakers where we discuss everything film and television. I'm your host, I'm Rex Sikes, and here on Movie Beat, you'll learn what to do and what not to do when it comes to making movies and TV and streaming content. We'll talk to everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and I'll provide you with the guests and the information you're going to want to have, whether you're a filmmaker or a fan. So let's now move behind the scenes here at Movie Beat. And first, I'd like to thank all my listeners and my readers and my watchers for tuning in and for spreading the word about Movie Beat to your friends and your industry connections, and for all your emails, phone calls, feedback, and support. And I'm just very glad that you're here. My guest today, I'm excited to have, is Mr. Michael Sajbel. Michael has written and produced and or directed over a dozen feature films. His most recent film is Florida Wild, is pending release. The film stars Pierson Fode from The Man from Toronto, Elle Chapman, the Madison 2026, Bailey Chase from Longmire, and Chandler Riggs from Walking Dead, Mira Sorvino, and Lee Majors. The Mulligan, another movie he's just recently done, was based on the Ken Blanchard and Wally Armstrong book of the same name and was released theatrically in 2022. The film stars Eric Close from American Sniper and Nashville, Tanya Christianson from I Still Believe, and Pat Boone. The film is available in all formats. Michael is perhaps best known for The Ultimate Gift, starring James Garner, Brian Dennehy, and Abigail Breslin, based on the novel by friend Jim Stovall. And Michael and Jim did a show together on The Ultimate Gift for my other show with the Los Angeles Tribune called All Things Rex Worldwide. He's also directed One Night with the King, a faithful retelling of the biblical story of Esther, starring Omar Sharif, John Rhys-Davies, Tiffany DuPont, John Noble, and Peter O'Toole. Now, altogether, Michael has worked in the above capacities or as a director of photography on over 40 feature films, numerous documentaries, and over 400 television episodes. So without any further delay, let me bring Michael up so that you can meet him too if you haven't already. Michael, how you doing today?
I'm well, Rex. It's great to be with you once again. I feel like this is a very comfortable old pair of shoes here, and we're hanging out again. I love it.
I love hanging out with you, Michael, and it's always good. And I don't see you enough, even though we're only a couple hours from each other. But I hope we fix that sometime soon.
Absolutely.
So, Michael, let's talk about your last movie first. How about that? Because that has a number of people in it. In fact, it has is it Tommy Rose?
Yeah, Tommy Rose is in it.
As well. She's lovely. She's on Instagram. She's all over the place. She's a singer and actress, and she's in your movie. And I didn't know that she was in it until she started posting stuff she was in it. And I was like, oh my goodness. Well, my friend's movie's got this girl in it. Yeah, go ahead.
An amazing story that I enjoy telling about that is this is my third at bat for with a producer named Rick Eldridge. And Rick was formerly based out of Charlotte, and now he's in Orlando. And we're old friends. I did The Ultimate Gift for him. I did The Mulligan for him. And so when it came to this film, I'm really fast forwarding here to where we were sitting across from each other casting with Mark Fincannon out of Atlanta, out of Trilith Studios, an amazing casting director. We started getting, and of course, Mark, winnows down who he thinks are appropriate candidates and who we should look at. And Pierson Fode read for the bad guy. Tommy Rose read for our ingenue. And I think that, everybody read for something else. And Rick and I just, we're trying to fit these people into the right places. And Rick had initially written the story. His sons had written the screenplay. I did a few polishes. And finally we realized that, hey, this is really our hero, and Tommy is our femme fatale, and so we rearranged who their roles were, and I feel we did it and what best suited not only their talents but the movie. So it's anybody who's a performer out there who auditions. Just know that if the producers and the director are creative enough, they'll see you for your talent and maybe put you in the right spot even if that's not what you audition for.
That's a great tip for everyone to pay attention to, and also I would submit is also a great point for maintaining a positive relationship with the people you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we and this movie called Florida Wild is you have to wrap your head around this a little bit, and it took me a couple of years to do this because they started talking about it right when we wrapped the Mulligan. Is that it's going to be a Western that takes place in Florida. Now, I've seen John Ford, Howard Hawks, Sergio Leone, all the great directors of classic Westerns and modern, spaghetti and that type of thing. And in order to make a Western, you need mountains and you need dust. And Florida is flat and it's got swamps, and alligators and stuff like that. So it took me a while to wrap my head. And then there are some great research materials and books written about this time just after the Civil War. They would herd cattle across the Florida. They had rustlers, they had bad guys, they had natives, and they had obviously all of that. And then they got them to a place called Bradenton, Sarasota, that area, and sold a lot of the cattle to Cubans for pieces of 8, old coins but gold. And so I just wrapped my head around that because in movies like The Searchers, the Red River, they're trading in double eagles, which was the American coin of the realm. But here we are with it was a different mindset. So and then getting hired, I thought it was just a slam dunk, me getting hired, but they after my interview, which was Zoom, I think we were at the tail end of COVID. I'm not sure. But anyway, Zoom is very convenient now. And a lot of people just use it as a matter of course. So what I did was I felt pretty good about my interview. And that afternoon, they went out to a friend of mine to direct. And then, and so I didn't hear anything, just the Hollywood no, which is resounding crickets and absolute silence. Yeah. The Hollywood no is more vacuous than space itself. So it was about a month later that I was driving across country, dropped my daughter off, helped her move into an apartment in Minnesota, that they called me and said, "Hey, so what do you think of the script?" I go, "Well, you went out to this other guy." And they go, "We went out to 4 guys. And we had 3 of the other guys come down here and we wined and dined them. And they got to see the land and all that." And I said, "Well, I've never been more on a losing end of a proposition in my life, So I figured it was a conciliatory call. And it wasn't. They said, "We just still are considering you as a prime candidate." So they said, "You're my guy. You talk to the executive producer tomorrow. He'll call you. And if he says yes to you as well, you're in." And so I was in. So it was these days when work isn't as frequent as you'd like it to be, it was a real huge blessing and a lot of fun, and not without challenges, but really a terrific experience.
Well, I will, first off, let me say this. The Western and Florida made no sense to me at all. I produced a movie in 2010. I was there for 4 months, and it was bittersweet. And the inland of Florida is not pretty. You've got the coast on both sides, and then you got the flat kind of desert cowboy area, that is the West in Florida. I had no idea until I was there that Florida was a cowboy state.
Very much so. Yeah, no, they've got now we still had to pull some props in from Georgia and from Texas, the chuck wagon, that type of thing. At our budget, which was modest, it was multiple millions, but it was not, Hollywood money. It wasn't, 50 million or above. So we couldn't build stuff from scratch. We had to really look into existing inventory. But we got cowboys. We got a lot of people who worked on Yellowstone to come and wrangle, and people who'd worked on a number of other Taylor Sheridan series type work, and so we really felt I was really in good hands. I really had experienced people. Plus, the territory we were filming, an entrepreneur, a real phenomenal guy, Mark Pentecost, started buying land down there. He was an old school teacher from Michigan, and he ended up starting a beauty products company and that type of thing. And it has a one of those trickle down formats where everybody gets something from everybody else, and if you're successful, everybody's successful, and a really positive outlook. He ended up owning 10,000 acres and 1,000 head of cattle. He had Longhorns. He got a couple of Brahmas here and there. He's got everything, and so we had a built-in cattle, and I only had to digitally add about 1,000 or two for the film.
Well, if you ever do another Western, and I hope that you do, are you familiar? A friend of mine is Peter Shareko of Caravan West.
Okay.
He had a shooting ranch in Agua Dulce, and but now
out in California.
Yeah, but they can't shoot there. But he travels and he outfits and rigs. He's got cowboys, extras, buckaroos, they're called, the horses, the saddle. Everything is real. I mean, it's legit. Whether it's a rubber gun or a real shooting gun or a twirling gun, he fits the movies. He's like he's a one pop shop for low budget films. The big people don't use them too much because they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. But the smaller films get the benefit of the discounts from. But he goes to Arizona, to New Mexico. I mean, he goes he can do it wherever they want. And he's an author. You love him if you don't know him. He played Vermilion Jack in Tombstone.
Okay. Well, I would have to look at that character again. I'd work with Michael Biehn, one of the privileges of my career. And Michael Biehn in Tombstone was absolutely amazing,
And he was Michael Biehn was in a movie called Yellow Rock, which had Peter in it, and friends of mine made in Los Angeles. It's a small world, though.
Sure it is. You bet it is.
I want to come back to something you said about the Hollywood no. In the 70s, as a young actor, they just always said, never expect to hear anything because they're afraid that if they say no and you make it, you will remember them forever. So they never say anything.
Well, I hadn't heard that, but it is embarrassing. If you're not a bit secure in your own self and your talents and possibly your trajectory of your career and all that, filmmaking in Hollywood are just not for you if you're not secure in that. I mean, because you're going to hear no, you're going to face rejection. It's just going to be constant. And it just, it's not for the faint of heart. And, I like to encourage younger people who are heading out there or wanting to make films right where they're sitting, where they've been planted and all of that. But yeah, there's a lot of advice that I give now that's completely different than I would have given, say, 25 years ago.
Let me ask you this, because this is important, because, and we'll talk about incentives in a minute in Wisconsin, but, there's been Hollywood for so long was the film capital of the world, and it's now moved into all sorts of other places, and Hollywood's having its own troubles today, kind of making ends meet and getting things produced. But the difference between working in a TV series or a professional production or a large budget production is very different. And when what they call the democratization of the film business, the iPhone came along, or the cellular cameras came along, suddenly anyone could make a movie. And so you could go out and you could get your friends in the backyard, make a movie. You didn't need lighting, you didn't, because the camera was pretty good digital wise, maybe some sound. Anyway, the point being is that they learn how to make movies, but they don't learn how to make professional movies. So they don't develop the skill set necessary to work in a professional arena, on a professional film. And oftentimes they overvalue themselves to the producers in terms of their dollar amount, but their expertise is not that. What advice would you give to filmmakers today who are starting out or who have made some feature films at home in their backyard kind of thing, and who want to break into the professional industry?
Well, I'm trying to put tabs on 2 or 3 comments I'd like to make to your question. The first is that in Hollywood, just historically, and I love the history of Hollywood. I love how it was formed And with the advent of every new technology, people went overboard with technology. So the advent of color, you had really rich colors, lousy stories. With the advent of sound, you had a lot of, sound and all that, but the story suffered. With the advent of widescreen, CinemaScope, you name it. So there's and until people return to making great stories, there's always going to be a hiccup. And you talked about the advent of the digital camera. And I mean, I did a number of films, a lot of films. I mean, I've safely shot well over 1 million feet of film myself. And just because I just know the statistics of how much you shoot on a typical feature, et cetera, and TV series and everything like that. It just, we went from where we kind of wink, wink, nod, nod said when we shot film and said, well, we'll fix it in post, which was really, let's just move on, okay? To where literally you complete a film in post now. And color grading has risen to such a state-of-the-art thing where you can add shadows, you can add highlights, you can add fog, you can add, I mean, I cannot describe enough how I can shoot film, I should say, characters now in the day and transfer them to like in night and change skies and there's a process of completely outlining a character, even the smallest hairs, and then you can relight them. It's called rotoscoping, but there may be other words for it. But now I send it over to India, where they do it at like $10 an hour, and it comes back perfect. I've gone to India for a couple of more laborious type of things like that for the last 20 years now. So then now you can relight them digitally even. And there's so much you can do, but you can't really change performance. So acting is still acting and things like that. You can make teeth whiter, you can make eyes glow, and then the other thing about just the part two, at least to my answer, is that I was at the American film market probably 5 years ago now, and I met a lot of distributors, and it's not as much a marketplace as I thought. It was more like Location Expo and that type of thing, but there are distributors there. And there was one distribution company there that wouldn't distribute a film if it cost more than $50,000. So there are spots for you, and you never really everybody says first, what's your budget? Don't tell them. That's none of their business. What does it look like? And then the third thing is that I did a feature, I think now in 2017, and I contacted Marcus, which is the 7th largest movie exhibitor in the country. And they're not like AMC or whatever, but they control the upper Midwest. They've got about 900 screens and all that. And they're lovely people. They're based out of Milwaukee, as you know. And I said, look, I want to show my film in your theater. What's it going to take? And they said, if it looks like a Hollywood film and it sounds like a Hollywood film and it's got the Hollywood quality, we'll show it. If it's made in Wisconsin. So you can, and you had a couple of great guests on a week or two ago, the woman who was with Amblin and the guy, and they were working on the film incentives for Wisconsin. And I'd love to meet them sometime. But, she mentioned one small little phrase in passing. If you get a distribution deal in advance, she goes, well, that doesn't really happen anymore. And it really doesn't happen anymore unless the funder is also the distributor. If Amazon pays for it, you're going to get on Amazon. If Netflix pays for it, you're going to get on Netflix, A&E, all the other movie channels. If they're funding it, believe me, they got skin in the game. They're going to want to show it. So I would say that the odds of you getting a distribution deal in advance are virtually nil. And I mean virtually nil. I don't want to say absolutely, because there's always a chance something might happen. But anyway, you can get a movie and then you show it. And the worst case scenario is if you make a movie on your iPhone or whatever, it's a calling card. Somebody's going to say, have you ever directed before? Yeah, right here. Here's my movie. Boom. Yeah. You're legit. Because that used to be the thing that we used to run into, Rex, back in the 70s and 80s is, well, what else have you done? These.
It was harder then because you had to pay for everything. You had to pay for raw stock and footage and processing, and I mean, it's not the same kind of thing. It's an interesting thing. Taking it back a little bit, as a young actor, I was told at the time, befriend the cameraman because they can make you look good or bad. Befriend the best gaffer, or the head gaffer, so that you're lit well. And the sound person. Those are the three people, I mean, you want to be nice to everybody, but make sure you're nice to them because they can make you look really bad. You stick you in the shadows, cut you out of the frame, or make your sound muffled or whatever. And now a lot of that can be corrected in post. So
well,
it doesn't look nice.
I have a dreadful story to tell you, Rex. And I was shooting a scene for a feature, and I was told that the jewelers who provided all the necklaces and the bling in about $1.5 million worth of jewelry were lent for this fancy dining room scene. And so they said, if you get a chance in the middle of directing everything, just go say hi to him. And I went and I said hi to him, and I said, thank you for the loan of your jewelry, and hopefully it's all returned and that type of thing. And they said, well, we're also a Rolex dealer. I go, oh, I've always wanted a Rolex. And I said, they go 20% off for you, 20%. I go, you got it. So then I was directing a little while longer, and I went back and I said, how about if you're in the scene, like you're really in, you can see you in the background. And they go, well, 25%. And so toward the end of the day, I went back and I said to them, what if you're in focus? I'm wearing my Apple Watch.
I love that. That's fantastic. By the way, Carlo Petrick, who I don't know if you know him personally or not, he's the one who shot that a parent that looked like a student film that I was in that you saw.
Oh, I love that.
In Wausau. He worked for Marcus. He started like in the 70s as an usher at the Crossroads Cinema and worked his way up. And then he was one of the top big people in terms of the marketing or something with Marcus. I don't remember. And then he quit, retired in Florida, and then sent me that film, which I hadn't seen since we shot it.
Well, it's funny because just before our call, I was on the phone a little bit. When you go to UCLA Film School, which I did, and I was one of 19 out-of-state students accepted, and there are probably about 30 in-state, 40 in-state. They kept the department purposely small, and I have no idea what it's like today. But for your senior year, you do a film called Project 2. You've done your Super 8 film. It probably sucked. Mine sucked, really sucked. But now this is your chance. You're the writer, producer, director. You're the auteur over at USC. They're teaching how to make features for the Hollywood studio system. At NYU, they're teaching documentaries. UCLA's independent film. So I thought of this idea, and I filmed it, and I mixed it, and I 16 millimeter, and I took it to the lab in Hollywood near Gower Gulch. I forget the name of the lab, but it was a black and white lab. And I put it in there with a bunch of notes, how to make it look great and all that. And then I got a note the next day from UCLA Film Department. We're showing your film this afternoon. It's your final grade. So I race back to Hollywood like 8 miles, and I get the film and I bring it back and I show it double system, and it brings the house down. People love it. It was just whatever. And then my mother shows up and goes, all right, your graduation, you're done. Let's go back to Wisconsin. I go, no, I'm staying out here. She goes, really? I said, yeah. So I sent my mom home, but I never developed the film. I never married the sound with the picture and all that. And just earlier this year, I said, I'm going to dig out that film, and I'm just within a week of it being completely finished.
And now you have to send me a copy and show me your work.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
I would love it.
You were so, and if you're talking to maybe someone else, they might say, well, what do I look like now? Huh? But you were so cherubic and innocent and cute. And it was just great. I loved it. I loved seeing that movie.
it's so amazing because I never thought of myself as anything like anything, right? And I was always called in to play rapists and drug addicts and killers because they were always like, "You don't look like one." But I also didn't look like the leading guy that got the girl. I didn't look, So it was an interesting childhood or teen, teen movie visit. That's I don't know. I definitely want to see that. That would be awesome. It is so amazing. Let me take a moment just to say that Movie Beat is really designed to be a resource for you, the viewer, the filmmaker, and so that's why I'm connecting you up with professionals like Michael, who are making things happen. And so I appreciate you sharing the show and shouting it out and asking questions when you can, when it's live, or liking it and subscribing to the show. So thank you. But Michael, I'm so thrilled that you're here. I mean, I could talk to you for days on end because there's lots in common that we share. And but also, you are, you're making it happen. You're living the dream. And you are always. I was talking to Michael before the show. I was teaching at the university, and Michael drove in as opposed to Skyping in, and drove in, came to the class, and sat down with the students afterwards, in one of the union restaurants, and spent hours hanging out with the filmmakers there. And I was like, that is so awesome of you.
Well, a couple of comments there. When you're in Milwaukee, you drink beer, okay? I mean, it's like it would be in between a venial and a mortal sin to not drink beer in Milwaukee. But I remember when I was going for 2 years prior to UCLA, I went to 2 years at the University of Wisconsin in Oshkosh, and William Conrad came in. Mr. The voice of Gunsmoke, and what was he? He was some private
TV show detective. It'll come, but probably hopefully before the show.
I don't watch that much TV. I was involved in TV for a long time, but I just whatever. So Conrad, part A was him showing up in the class, but part B, you went out to the bars with William Conrad, and you drank beer and all that. And it was a lot of fun. He was Cannon, wasn't it?
Cannon. Yeah, there you go.
All right. See, the brain still works. I don't know if I've ever seen an episode, but anyway.
He did another one too, where he was like a black and white cop show back in the days, like in the 50s. I can't think of what that was, but
voice, really great voice. And I had the honor of working with him. One of the professors at UW Oshkosh was named Bob Jacobs, or Robert Jacobs, and he knew Conrad, and I produced a film for Bob and with Bob called The Cremation of Sam McGee, and Robert Conrad read it in his house just off of Coldwater Canyon, and I happened to be in the same room at the time, and so it was a real privilege being with him yet again, you might say.
Wow, very, very cool. So since we're talking Milwaukee, we're talking Wisconsin, let's talk a little bit about the need for film incentives and why the state, like all other states, I mean, Wisconsin is only one of 4 that doesn't have a film office, and one of a half a dozen or so that doesn't have film incentives. Back in 2006, 7, and 8, there were 35 states that had then film incentives, and Wisconsin, when they instituted them, with the film-friendliest versions of that. But sadly, the political climate at the time was such that they brought them in and then took them right back out. And so we didn't get to see the overall long-term benefit of building an infrastructure, having a viable film industry within our state, as well as attracting a business from outside the state to come in. But the benefits of having a production. I mean, can you just, because of your producing and directing experience, can you just name some of the departments that when they come into an area, they're going to do local business, like carpentry,
I would say, first of all, that film making is as economically and eco-friendly business as you can possibly get. It just take only pictures, leave only footprints type stuff, and unless you're going to blow something up, it really is a boon to the restaurants, to a lot of local crew, certainly hotels and all of that. So the benefits having a film come to your place, to your state, are certainly on that local level. But there's also a prestige factor that, hey, this film was shot here, and we certainly. I've been through many iterations of the Wisconsin Film Incentives Program, all the way back to a guy named Moose, like 30, 40 years ago. And what was it? Starman with Jeff Bridges, supposed to take place in Wisconsin, and they shot it in Tennessee. I mean, come on, at the very least, if shoot it or, whatever. So it's frustrating.
A friend of mine shot a movie called The Driftless Area or something. And the Driftless area up by Baraboo, but they didn't shoot it here because they didn't have any incentives. So it was all about the area, but had like Starman.
Yeah,
but you're right. You're right though. Your restaurants, hotels, rentals, car rentals, vehicle rentals, equipment rentals, attorney services, legal services, copy services, whatever. I mean, you can think of almost. It's like manufacturing anything. You utilize resources around you and you pay to have that done. So small businesses and large businesses benefit. The tourism industry benefits, the location. People do like to go, oh, that's where they shot such and such. In fact, when I first moved here to raise my children kind of thing was, and I would go back and forth, but I would be sitting watching movies, with my then wife or friends. I go, oh, that parking lot is where this. They go, shut up and let us watch the movie for God's sake. And I'm like, they go, no, just shut up and let us watch the movie. People do like that. They like to visit those locations. They like to see something that's familiar in the films.
When I did this thriller type film about 2017 now, a couple took the movie, and I don't know how they froze it or whatever. They went to every single location except they said, Michael, the graveyard, we couldn't find the gravestone. I go, because you can't use a real gravestone. They have a gravestone that they practice fonts, and the new guy works on etching it, and the other side was bare. So we bought the bare side and we're able to use it that way. I want to be as apolitical in my answer as possible for a number of reasons. First is I don't want to disenfranchise half the audience. Right. And America is 50-50 like never before. But they're both Wisconsin, shall we say, political classes have both done their have tried and or failed, and I remember that when the Johnny Depp movie, Michael Mann, film came here, Public Enemies, there was an X number of millions of dollars, and they really took a majority of that money, draining, if you will, the bank account or the incentive account. I just did a movie in Florida that Florida is a non-incentive state. You hear about Florida and Governor DeSantis and right to work and all that, but no, I mean, it does not have film incentives. So we did the film there in order to show the state what kind of economic impact, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars were poured into an area that would not have experienced that otherwise. And so the thing is that you've seen it expand and then you've seen it contract too, like for instance with Michigan. And Michigan used to be, I mean, I have friends who produced films in Michigan that had nothing to do with Michigan, but there was a great incentive there. And now that's withdrawn, to the best of my knowledge, or it's greatly contracted. So also a state has to deal with, and I don't want to make their case for them, all the other industries, like in Wisconsin, the paper making industry and the cheese making. Well, why don't we get incentives, huh? Why are they getting the incentives? So there's a little bit of that infighting too there. But yeah, I believe that any government should be responsible for increasing the flow of investment dollars in their state. And, but you mentioned something early on that these things have to really be almost permanent in order to get professional positions of people to move into the state and make it their home. And when you see Trilith Studios down south of Atlanta, where there's like 32 B-52 size sound stages, and all the Marvel movies are now shot there. They've built a village of different architectural styles that crew members can buy or rent to live there. And people are there. And one of the biggest things is we talk about hotels and things like that, but ultimately you want the people who are taxpayers in that state to earn the money to pay their state taxes.
Right.
And so there's got to be a demonstrative thing. And it's a bit of a quagmire, but I had friends who were about to produce a film in Oklahoma. Oklahoma has incentives, but they almost went to South Africa for another 5%. I'm going, if the movie takes place in Oklahoma and Oklahoma has an incentive, just, I mean, it at some point we as filmmakers have to say, well, I want to shoot this in the right place as well. I want to shoot this in where it kind of happens and all of that. So,
well, you raise an interesting point too, though. There's a few of them actually. I mean, a lot of good points. One is I am all for incentives that are wisely and judiciously and prudently administered, and so that there's overseeing of them. They're not just carte blanche, sign a blank check kind of stuff. They're wisely administered so that everybody can benefit, and so that's important. So that one project doesn't drain it, so that nobody else can come in. The other thing is that the idea is to bring business in, is to attract them here. And what you said about that going to South Africa is there are always people who will be discount shoppers that look for the lowest, or the biggest discount. But then there are all those other ones that will do what you just said. They'll go, this takes place here and we get a break. And so this makes sense to be here. Yeah. So if you can be attractive to outside business, that's fantastic. Bring it in. Hopefully they move, they relocate, they build up the business like they did in Georgia, that you meant. But also that the local filmmakers are incentivized so that they can make their films, because it's not just the production of the films, it's the distribution of the film. It's the taking the product and then distributing it to the world. And entertainment is the largest global export that this country has, the United States. And everyone seems to forget about that. And when the incentives were here in Wisconsin for a short period of time and then gone, we could have captured millions and billions of dollars and created billions and millions of dollars, but they weren't here long enough to make a difference. So right. it requires that people are on top of it and not, and from what I understand from the people working at this now is that they really are dedicated to making sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, so that, good comes from this, which ultimately it does anyway. But
I like to, in particular, how you code a film's expenses. Like, for instance, if Michael Mann, the noted director, Miami Vice, and all of these other, and a lot of terrific movies, Heat and all that. If Michael Mann comes here and he's going to shoot here for, say, 2 weeks, but he's going to work on the film for 20 weeks, well, then 10% of his salary can be coded against the state, not 50%. That type of thing. And so there's got to be a transparency there. And then I think it's just got to be clear that it's got to be a plus benefit to the state. If they can't just be in a business of welfare, corporate welfare. So if you can justify that you're going to film X number, you're going to spend X number of dollars here, and they know that the tax base is going to be enhanced by this much, then now we're talking about something, that, and really, I think what we're talking about right here is maybe a 2-stage process where you start off and you get people to move in. I hear that a lot of the craftspeople who are working in Detroit and so forth have since moved out, like, I'm going to put up with this sucky climate and I'm with no work, that type of thing. So I just feel that, there's got to be patient people, and I really admire the people you had on your show the other day.
Oh, no, they're great.
Along with yourself, of course, Rex, and a few others that have talked to me about incentives.
Well, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
It's just that there should be something. Now, when I directed a film a few years ago in Neenah, Wisconsin, there were no incentives in Wisconsin. But I put on a nice sport coat and I went to City Hall and I went to the Common Council meeting, and I knew 2 or 3 of the councilmen already because I lived in the area. And I said, look, when I come to do a film in Wisconsin or any other state, shall we say, they're ready to hand me a check of incentive money, a rebate or something. And they all turn white and ashen and all that in their complexion. And I said, but I don't want to charge you anything to be here. On the other hand, I don't want you to charge me anything. And they go, well, what do you want? I said, well, I don't want to pay for permits.
Right.
I don't want to, if I want the street wet down, I want your fire department to wet it down. If I have like a Johnny Depp where I need protection like police, just to keep the crowd back, although Wisconsin people are extraordinarily polite. Believe me, we're the politest people around. And so they said, oh yeah, you have all that. Do it. Just go ahead and do it. So, and then, we obviously still have to work with government agencies like the FAA when we're going to throw a drone up in the air and a few things like that. But nothing onerous. I don't think we had to pay. Oh my gosh, am I going to get in trouble? I don't think we had to pay a municipal business tax either.
Well, what you demonstrate is that everything's negotiable, which it should be.
Absolutely.
And whether there's incentives or not, it should be negotiable, and you demonstrate that. And the other part is about the business and the growth of a business that benefits everyone. When the original incentives were here, and they were only here for about a year and a half, and then they were taken out. During that year, there were 4 movies that benefited from the incentives. I said this on the other shows, but there were 25 other productions in the state, many of which that would not have happened. Reality TV came in. David Lynch's ex-wife came in and did Baraboo, that kind of thing. And so what it meant was that there was a flurry of production during that year. When they were taken away, suddenly there was this drought. There was nothing. Everybody was gone. The incentives were over. It was like everybody had their tail between their legs and were licking their wounds. But when there were incentives, when there was a reason to make film and to help benefit the producers, and the producers benefit the community, like what you demonstrated, we had a lot of business going on. And it hasn't been that busy since. And now, all these years later, there's the opportunity for them to create something that can be long-standing, benefit all the entire state, not just a particular area, and they can oversee the line items and make sure that everything. History repeats itself unless you learn from it. And I think when they first did it, they didn't know what they were doing. A lot of the people didn't know. Now, all these years later, they've been able to educate themselves and bring themselves up to speed to actually put a viable planned package together, get it passed, and then make things happen for the state, which would be marvelous. Absolutely.
I remember back, though, 25, 30 years ago or more, where there would be a location exposition in Los Angeles at the convention center or in Santa Monica.
Yeah, in Santa Monica.
And Wisconsin would be there, and they would have bumper stickers that say Wisconsin, you're among friends. And they had a tap of beer. You could get a cold beer at the Wisconsin thing. And it was just so wonderful and friendly and cordial. And you wanted to do a film in Wisconsin after visiting those guys. And they were part of Department of Tourism, I believe. And
at the time, and there are some wonderful stories like that. I went out as a representative to the location thing, and there was somebody representing Wisconsin. So I kind of incognito went, so tell me about Wisconsin. And the people that were there didn't have a clue. They were just like manning the table. They're like, well, the person's not here. He'll be back in hours, And I was like, you're kidding, right? And they go, no. I said, well, what if I want to make a movie? They go, well, you have to talk to, and I'm like, whose name will not be spoken in this show. But the point is that it wasn't done well that time. Now, and that's anecdotal. I mean, maybe all the other times it was fine, but that time it was questionable. And I think it was 2-day event, if I remember, or a day or two, all day. So.
Well, let's just say this. It's tough to get something out of a legislature where several celebrities come to Madison with a bullhorn and talk them down.
Well, yeah, I suppose. But the key is
It's
to
my old 50% rule. Don't disenfranchise half, whatever that half is.
well, I got to give a shout out to Action Wisconsin for their work, and Jeffrey Kurz, who you mentioned, and Susan Gergerva, and Jeff Ohm, who've been guests of the show, and Image Milwaukee, and the other people who are working very hard to create a wise incentive plan and get it passed by appealing to the legislators and demonstrating, the value and the worth of this, because there is an incredible amount of worth to not just the filmmakers, but to the citizens at large and the mom and pop businesses who will benefit. When you say, well, I want the fire department to do this, or I want the police to do that. I mean, those are services that are otherwise paid for, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's, and I have a friend who made a short film in Los Angeles, and her 3 producers stood up in front of the crowd and at the screening and said, yeah, we tried every which way to find out how we can pay for this alley, and we finally found somebody. I go, no, you stand there and start shooting. Okay, if somebody shows up and says this is my alley, then you make a deal. I'm sorry.
Well, I think one of the largest arguments for film incentives in Wisconsin is what happened in the 80s when the film incentives were part of Canada. And all TV and movie went over the border because they had the Canadian dollar difference, and then they had the incentive. So it was like a double bonus to go shoot in Canada. I mean, working in Hollywood became very difficult. Unless you were part of the key, members of the crew, you couldn't go to Canada and work. And unless you were one of the 2 name act, like what was the David
the X-Files.
X-Files, gee whiz, talk about a brain cramp. The X-Files. I mean, unless you were like, most of the actors, unless they were one of the first or second leads beside them, guest stars or whatever, were Canadian. So, I mean. Yeah,
that's, you're talking to a guy who's written and produced a feature in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Gosh, Vancouver is incredible. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Vancouver. However, there has been an evolution of them. First of all, people were going up there because of incentives, and they quickly choked it off to only 4 people from the U.S. can come.
Yeah,
they can be actors, they can be producer, the director, whatever, but everybody else has to be Canadian. Well, that really boosted them a lot. And then, of course, the exchange rate. I think the time I did a feature, it was about, I think we got about 20% more for the bang for the buck. And, but by then, so many features were being shot in Vancouver. It was film saturated. So I call up this hotel, the one of the beautiful ones with the steeped roof that looks like it's from Quebec or Montreal, the Royal Vancouver Hotel or whatever. And I go, hey, it's Michael. I'm producing a film. And he goes, okay, Michael, before you say another word, even if you wanted to pay full price, we don't have any rooms for you. So, you got hit with that. And so you really ran into the result of almost too much going on up there. But I love it up there, and it's so fun to film in Vancouver. And they have Cuban cigars, of course, you can buy on the street, not the street, but at a tobacconist, and all these other vices that I enjoy. But the bottom line is that they built their own infrastructure and their own, thing. I don't know if people go up to Canada as much as they used to, because now there's Atlanta and other places, But
yeah, I would say now, Michael, we only have maybe 5 or 6 minutes left, and I want to turn back to your career because you've done so many wonderful things, and share that. I'm going to post something. I'm going to mention this now because I've let it go and haven't done anything with it since 2016, but I've kept it forever, and that is and kept paying for it. But that's Rex Sikes MovieBeat.me was a blog. My original MovieBeat site was compromised. It was taken away. It was hacked. It was gone. I couldn't get it back, and the hosting company wouldn't get it back for me. So I created another one on WordPress, which was rexsykesmoviebeat.me. Well, I abandoned it in 2016 because it was a scrolling blog. You can scroll through stuff. So, but if people want to go there and look at it, this is there. I will update it because I just got an email like the other day saying it was going to renew. So I was like, well, this is cool. I'm rebooting the show as a podcast here and on the Los Angeles Podcast Network and all the other podcast shows. So if people want to check out rexsykesmovie.me, I will be updating that sometime soon as well. So just so people know. Anyway, let's return to you, Michael, because you're my guest and you're fascinating and I love you. And I'm so glad that you're here and we're having this conversation. Future plans, anything you want to share or anything you want to talk about this?
Sure. Well, right now, the things that are sort of on the front burner, if you will, or at least on the top of the stove, is I bought the rights to this book called Rads. And it's about the 4 guys who became radicalized and blew up a building in Madison in 1970,
right.
the Vietnam War. And this has got miniseries written all over it.
Indeed.
So I'm going to go to LA. I'll hang out with an agent on like this next Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we're going to see where we're going to keep talking about what the potential is. Who do we bring this to, and all of that. And of course, Hollywood is like this. Oh, we don't want any period piece right now, or we don't want any limited series right now. You know, you got to ignore that, ignore the odds, ignore all of that, because you'll see this on the screen in 2 years. The next one is a movie about a special needs kid, not needs as much as, but he's unusual physical characteristics. And we're going to shoot that in Green Bay. We're going to film that in Green Bay, and I was working on the budget just before we got on this call, and I still need to shave off about 5% of the budget to get to what the money is we're asking for, and so that'll be fun. That movie's called Amphibious, and then a documentary that I've been working on with a couple out of like someplace down by Milwaukee, but they're Packer historians. And we want to make a documentary of all the players who played with Reggie White and how he influenced their lives, and have they faced any personal crises since then or during that time, and how did their lives turn out and all of that. And so it's kind of to honor Reggie and his legacy, and you know, obviously we're in the middle of, I think, where's my Lambeau Field right here. I'm also a part owner of the Green Bay Packers, so it is vitally interesting to me. So, yeah, those are the things that are on the burner. But I've written a couple of books. One book is with a publisher right now in southern Wisconsin, and I'm hoping that we come to a deal on the publishing and how it's gonna show up at the Yankee Bookstore in Wausau, Wisconsin. So it's a memoir, and then there's another one about hitchhiking across country that I published recently. So yeah, all those things, always something going on. And I got a golf tournament in about less than an hour. I'm going to be in a golf tournament.
Wow! All right. Well, very cool. I've enjoyed our conversation. I enjoy you. I don't see you nearly enough, or talk to you nearly enough. I'll be looking forward to that. Unlinguinied film of yours.
Yeah.
From way back.
48 years have gone by from my student film, and what Rex is referring to is that the mag stripe tends to take on the appearance of lasagna with the wrinkled edges, and it's no longer transferable. So I had to go back to my original Nagra tapes.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, and I look forward to when the movie is released. Your Western and all the other projects. So I'll talk to you soon. You know, I mean, and stay up. Let's stay in closer touch, because there's just too much going on.
I say this to every viewer on your show, but I'll say it especially to you. Come on up. I'll serve you a beer. I'll cook you a brat the right way. It'll be a Johnsonville brat, and with some grilled onions on the side.
Well, I will take you up on that. Absolutely. I haven't been up there in a long time. I would love to do that.
Marvelous.
Thank you, Michael, for being here. Hang out while I close out the show, and I'll be talking to you very shortly. And have a good golf tournament when you do.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it has been a pleasure. Thank you. All right, stay tight. I'll be right back. You are watching Rex Sikes Movie Beat. My fabulous guest was Michael Sajbel, producer, director, writer, DP, and all-around good guy, and author. He's got 3 books, an author, and movies coming out, movies that he's working on. So you want to stay tuned and check out him. You can find him on the internet. Search his name, that kind of thing. But you're watching Rex Sikes Movie Beat. The official web address I'm going to give you now is a new one that I just put up there saying. It's my old, outdated site, rexsikesmoviebeat.me. I had to change it for reasons, but that will be it. And I appreciate your comments and your support about the blog and the articles, the conversations here on the show. Please subscribe to the channel, Rex Sikes, Create Your Best Life at Rex, which is where also this show is housed. And subscribe, and then hit the bell notification so you'll always be alerted to when there are new shows coming up. And if you hear of something before I do, please contact me right away, and I'll attempt to get it on the website or on the show. Or if you have guests or suggestions that please, make me aware of them. But again, I want to thank my fascinating guest, Mr. Michael Sajbel, and you, the watchers, the viewers, the listeners, and eventually the readers again, of Movie Beat. We got many more exciting guests coming up. I also have the show Create Your Best Life with Rex on the very same channel. It's rexsikestv.com. And there's Create Your Best Life with Rex, which is mostly authors and speakers and good people, some filmmakers and celebrities, but mostly people are going to help you, inspire you to create your best life ever. And then there's Movie Beat Conversations with Filmmakers, which is what to do and what not to do when you navigate a career. Get tips and advice. So be sure to stay tuned. And keep sharing this website and this show and these interviews with your friends and your contacts and your filmmakers. And I would appreciate that. Now, lastly, I want to tell you about my book. Is Rex Sikes Movie Beat, the book. Let's see if I don't know that I'll be able to show you the book right now. But if you get my book, Life on Your Terms, available at Amazon, and you go to this website, rexsikes.com/book, right there. They'll give you all the details for how you can get, at no charge, as my gift, a $497 training, a video training, online video training on mastery, how you master your thoughts, your words, your feelings, your behaviors, and any talent or ability that you'd like to master so that you're more in control of your life and live life on your terms. It's a great companion to the book, Life on Your Terms, Create the Life That You Want. So go there, get the book. It's like $20 or $40 if you get the hardcover, and then go back to the website and you'll get a $497 valued training absolutely free. And again, I want to thank you for being here, because without you, there would be no reason to do this show. My goal is to connect you up with people who are making things happen, whether it's in the domain of your mindset and attitude or your ability to entertain, make movies, and get your message and your content out to the world. So with that, I'm Rex Sikes. I will see you the next time. Thank you so much for watching this show. My next show, I believe, is going to be a Create Your Best Life with Rex, but don't hold me to that. Just keep watching and paying attention to Twitter and Facebook and the bell notifications there at rexsikestv.com. And again, an important thing is when, there you go, rexsikestv.com. That houses both shows. When the show is live, you can chat, you can ask questions and leave comments, but in the replay, obviously you can't. So I always encourage people, if they want to engage with my guests, to attend live if they can. If not, they can watch the show at that, or wherever podcasts are, you can listen to the show. All right, again, Rex Sikes, and we'll see you next time. That is a wrap.